Or hearing A talking bad about B, you go and tell B, A said such and such a thing, and you cause A and B to quarrel. So that is divisive speech. So this is having abandoned malicious speech. He abstains from malicious speech. Having abandoned harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. Having abandoned idle chatter, he abstains from idle chatter. Having abandoned covetousness, he is uncovetous. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, he has a mind without ill will. Having abandoned wrong view, he is one of right view. Stop here for a moment. So here is a list of all of the 10 unwholesome karmas. This is something you must always keep in mind. You must memorize these 10 unwholesome karmas because it is very important to abstain from these 10 unwholesome karmas. They are karmas through the body, speech and mind. Through the body, there are 3 wrong karmas, 3 evil karmas. One is killing. Another one is taking what is not given or stealing. Third is sexual misconduct or adultery. So the body, 3 evil body karmas. Then 4 evil verbal karmas. Through the mouth, we can do wrong by false speech, lying. Secondly, malicious speech. Then thirdly, harsh speech or coarse speech, using foul language and loud speech and all that. Then the fourth is idle chatter, gossip. So through the mouth we can do 4 wrong karmas. And then mental karma, there are 3. First is covetousness, greed for other people's things. Greed for other people's property, greed for other people's husband or wife is covetousness. And then the second mental evil karma is having a lot of ill will, having a lot of anger and hatred in the mind. That is the second one. The third one is wrong view. Wrong view means not believing in karma vipaka, not believing that after death there is rebirth, that there is life, not believing that there are holy men who walk the spiritual path and can become liberated and all that. So that is wrong view. So these 10 always keep in mind not to do these 10, any one of these 10 unwholesome karmas, because if you constantly do these, any one of these evil karmas can bring you to hell. Then the Buddha continued. Then headman, that noble disciple who is thus devoid of covetousness, devoid of ill will, unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, dwells pervading 1 quarter with the mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. Just as a strong conch blower can easily send his signal to the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation by mind of loving kindness is developed and cultivated in this way, any limited karma that was done does not remain there, does not persist there. Stop here for a moment. This one is liberation by mind or release by mind of loving kindness. That means the mind is so strong, it radiates loving kindness. We can call it radiation by mind of loving kindness. He dwells pervading 1 quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, karuna, with a mind imbued with joy, mudita, with a mind imbued with equanimity, upekka. Likewise the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with these 4 qualities, vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. Just as a strong conch blower can easily send his signal to the 4 quarters, so too when the liberation by mind of equanimity or any of the 4 is developed and cultivated in this way, any limited karma that was done does not remain there, does not persist there. When this was said, Asibandaka Putta, the headman, said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent, Venerable Sir, magnificent." And he took refuge in the triple gems. And he said, "From today, let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life." In other words, he changed his religion from the Nigantas to the Buddha. So this quite a nice sutta about karma. So always remember in the Buddha's teachings, if we do wrong, we don't regret too much. Always think of the future. What is past, don't go and have a lot of remorse. Only have the remorse to the extent that we make a determination not to repeat it. Don't be like some people, they have remorse over the past and they commit suicide. The next sutta is 42.9. On one occasion, the Blessed One, while wandering on tour among the Kosalans, together with a large sangha of monks, arrived at Nalanda. He stayed there at Nalanda in Pavarika's mango grove. Stop here for a while. This Kosala is one of the two powerful countries during the Buddha's time, Kosala and Magadha. And the king of Kosala is Pasenadi. I think we read one Sangyutta about Pasenadi, Raja of Kosala. So he stayed at Nalanda, at Pavarika's mango grove. Now on that occasion, Nalanda was in the grip of famine, a time of scarcity, with crops blighted and turned to straw. On that occasion, Niganta Nataputta was residing at Nalanda, together with a large retinue of Nigantas. Then Asibandaka Putta, the headman, a lay disciple of the Nigantas, approached Niganta Nataputta, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. Niganta Nataputta then said to him, "Come, headman, refute the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama. Then a good report concerning you will be spread about thus. Asibandaka Putta, the headman, has refuted the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama, who is so powerful and mighty." Stop here for a moment. So, the Buddha with a large sangha of monks was at Nalanda. And this Niganta Nataputta, he also was in the same place, Nalanda, with a large retinue of his monks. So he was jealous of the Buddha because the Buddha had a very good reputation. So because he was jealous, he asked his lay follower Asibandaka Putta to go and argue with the Buddha and win the argument. But he himself dare not go, you see. He's very smart. Instead of going himself, he go and ask this headman to go and argue for him. And then this Asibandaka Putta asked him, "But how, Venerable Sir, shall I refute the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama, who is so powerful and mighty?" And then he said, "Go, headman, approach the ascetic Gotama and ask him, 'Venerable Sir, doesn't the Blessed One in many ways praise sympathy towards families, the protection of families, compassion towards families?' If when he is questioned by you thus, the ascetic Gotama answers, 'Yes, headman, the Tathagata in many ways praises sympathy for families, the protection of families, compassion for families,' then you should say to him, 'Then why, Venerable Sir, is the Blessed One wandering on tour with a large sangha of monks at a time of famine, a time of scarcity, when crops are blighted and have turned to straw? The Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families. When the ascetic Gotama is posed this dilemma by you, he will neither be able to throw it up nor to gulp it down." Let's stop here for a moment. So this Niganta Nataputta told this headman to ask the Buddha, "You are supposed to be compassionate. Why you go around with a large sangha of monks and bringing hardship to the people? The people are already experiencing famine, not enough to eat. Now you bring such a large sangha of monks begging for food. You are causing people difficulty. They already don't have enough to eat. Then Asibandaka Putta, the headman, said, "Yes, Venerable Sir." Then he rose from his seat, and after paying homage to Niganta Nataputta, keeping him on his right, he departed and went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to the Blessed One, he sat down to one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, doesn't the Blessed One in many ways praise sympathy for families, the protection of families, compassion for families?" And he said, "Yes, headman, the Tathagata in many ways praises sympathy for families, the protection of families, compassion for families." Then why, Venerable Sir, is the Blessed One wandering on tour with a large sangha of monks at a time of famine, a time of scarcity, when crops are blighted and have turned to straw? The Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families. And the Buddha said, "I recollect, or I remember, 91 aeons, that means world cycles back, headman, but I do not recall any family that has ever been destroyed merely by offering cooked alms food. Rather, whatever families there are that are rich, with much wealth and property, with abundant gold and silver, with abundant possessions and means of subsistence, with abundant wealth and grain, they all have become so from giving, from truthfulness and from self-control." Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, just because they give food to monks, they share their food with monks, it doesn't mean that they are destroyed. In fact, it's the opposite. If they give in the future, they'll be very, very rich. In fact, in the suttas, the Buddha always says, what is difficult to do is more meritorious. So like at the time of famine, when it's difficult to give and they can give, then the merit is even more than in the time when there is no famine. And then also the Buddha says here that three things makes a person very wealthy. One is giving, charity. Second one is truthfulness. And the third is self-control. Self-control, that means you keep the precepts. You don't overindulge yourself in wine, women and song and all that. And then the Buddha continued, "Headman, there are 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families. Families come to destruction on account of the king, on account of thieves, and on account of fire, or on account of water, or they do not find what they have put away, or mismanaged undertakings fail, or there arises within a family a wastrel who squanders, dissipates, and fritters away its wealth, and impermanence is the 8th. These are the 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families. But while these 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families exist, if anyone speaks thus of me, the Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families. If he does not abandon that assertion and that state of mind, and if he does not relinquish that view, then according to his deserts, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell." When this was said, Asibandaka Putta, the headman, said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent Venerable Sir, magnificent Venerable Sir." And then he took refuge in the 3 triple gems and became a lay follower of the Buddha. So this last part, the Buddha says, 8 causes and conditions will cause the downfall of a family, destruction of family. One is the king. For some reason, if you antagonize the king can get his soldiers to slaughter your whole family. During those times, the king was very powerful. Secondly, because of thieves or bandits, they can come and rob your house and kill the family members. Number 3, because of fire. Fire can destroy all your property. Number 4, because of water, flood waters can kill all your crops, all your property.